lovely Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick is sharing more disinformation, so let's talk about it. Get in here. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like and subscribe and let me know what you think in the comments below. Okay, yeah, the Sean Kirkpatrick, the lovely, who is ostensibly retired from Arrow, is really making the rounds recently, spreading his particular brand of disinformation on behalf of the control group. So let's see what he's saying now.
At the NASA panel, they did a really nice job of pulling that apart and demonstrating that that was parallax. I think where I left that with Arrow was to take the analysis from NASA, double checks everybody, and then put that out as closure.
This video was recorded by
So yeah, of course, we're talking about the Go Fast video, and he defers to NASA, you know, basically saying it's parallax, giving it the illusion of an object going fast. And there's the NASA breakdown of why they determine that. But, you know, here's the thing about Go Fast. It doesn't matter how fast it was going. It's an object moving with no visible means of propulsion. It's not a drone. Drones move with visible means of propulsion. It's not a balloon. It's flying way out over the water at a steady rate. It's an anomalous object. People get hung up on the 5 observables, and they don't want to look at an object that doesn't display one of the 5 observables. Well, there's plenty of anomalous objects that are not currently, at the time of filming, displaying the 5 observables, and we have to be willing to look at those as well. So, you know, don't let that distract you from looking at genuinely anomalous objects like Go Fast. In moving without a visible means of propulsion, I believe qualifies. So, you know, really interesting sighting, a really interesting capture by this flight crew of this interesting object, and a totally bogus debunking by NASA and the lovely Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. Now, it's interesting how he defers to NASA for the debunking. And it's also funny how, you know, Bray and Moultrie, Heckle and Jekyll, at the first UFO hearing in modern times, deferred to Mick West to debunk the flying pyramids over the U.S. battle group. You know, the chief scientist of the U.A.P. task force had declared that object as genuinely anomalous. Bray and Moultrie didn't like that conclusion, so they went with the Mick West conclusion. So when in doubt, go with whatever handy debunking is available. But let's all remember that Sean Kirkpatrick was groomed from the time he was 17 by the Department of Energy after inventing a machine to speed up blood typing through the use of lasers. And I've gone through all of that before, but it's worth repeating. It's worth repeating. Sean Kirkpatrick has been in this since he was a young lad, groomed to be part of the control group, and he's been involved in science and in intelligence since an early age. You know, you could say maybe he's just a disaffected bureaucrat that doesn't believe in UFOs, but that doesn't seem to be what's going on. He's associated with multiple companies that do reverse engineering of UFOs. He seems to have been groomed by the Department of Energy since the time he was a wee lad, and he has a long history with science and intelligence. So, to my mind, he is an overt agent of the control group, but I know there are others who would disagree with that. So you let me know what you think. Is he a disaffected bureaucrat that doesn't believe in UFOs? Or is he an overt tool of the control group? I know which way I swing, but he is also, of course, not satisfied with debunking the Go Fast. He's also not even going to look at the Nimitz because it was too long ago. It was too long ago, guys.
So I think the Tic-Tac is so far back in time. There's no data. We went and looked for all the data. But the other thing that I asked around.
He looked for all the data. He looked really hard for all the data. He did, guys. He did. I believe him.
Found a bit, which I don't know. It certainly hadn't been answered by the time I left. Was, there wasn't a lot of asking or questioning of other activities that might have been going on at the time. either naval activities or adversary activities. And both of those needed to be explored at that time because records of when tests, for example, were done that far back in time may not be accurate or exist, and records of any adversary activity, will be hard to track down.
Yeah, it was too long ago, guys. It was probably an adversary, because that makes sense, right? They had 100 UFOs over a week's time, disrupting training exercises from the Nimitz. They were, coming and going from space to sea level in about a second without creating a sonic boom. Also, keep in mind this is from Commander David Fravor's congressional testimony. As they were approaching the Tic-Tac, they'd seen the disturbance in the water. Our altitude at this point was approximately 1,500 feet, with the Tic-Tac about 1,200 feet, 12,000 feet, excuse me. As we pulled nose onto the object at approximately a half a mile with the object just left of our nose, it rapidly accelerated and disappeared right in front of our aircraft. Like a bullet out of a gun, he has said. So yeah, Russia or China, right? If they had that technology, you think that Ukraine or Taiwan would not be part of those countries by now? So yeah, makes sense. So yeah, Sean Kirkpatrick is an adversary, right? Also keep this in mind. Let's keep going. Our wingman, roughly 8,000 feet above us, also lost visual. We immediately turned to investigate the white water, only to find that it was also gone. The large submersible object jetted off very quickly. As we turned back towards our cap point, roughly 60 miles east, the air controller let us know that the object had reappeared on the Princeton's Aegis. I think I'm saying that right. I said that right. Spy 1 radar at our cap point. This Tic-Tac object had just traveled 60 miles in a very short period of time, less than a minute, was far superior in performance to my brand new FA-18F and did not operate with any of the known aerodynamic principles that we expect for objects to fly in our atmosphere. Yeah, so again, not Russia or China. It knew where the cap point was. How did it know where their cap point was? Is this some psychic or prescient ability, of that technology, or the beings operating that technology? Were they hacking into the systems? If they did, that was some deep level hacking going on there, guys. That's some sophisticated stuff. And also the object was jamming the radar. So that is an act of war. That is technically an act of war. So is this an adversary? Is this an act of war? An adversary with technology that they don't have, because if they did, they would have utilized it by now in very overt ways. And if it was, one of ours, if it was one of our black programs, also, again, that's weird that it would commit an act of war, which jamming radar is considered. And so could it be Lockheed Martin? Could it be one of ours? If it's Lockheed Martin, then it sounds like they've got an underwater base off Catalina, because that's where these objects vanished toward, seemingly. And they have 100 plus craft, also seemingly. And they can do some fantastic stuff. Now, I don't doubt that Lockheed Martin has UFOs. Do they have that many UFOs? Do they have their own underwater base? Well, who knows? But we've learned recently from Nico and John Stewart that they do seem to have their own crash retrieval teams, and they do have apparently soldiers willing to kill for them. Even kill U.S. government people. So that they do seem to have their own thing going on, possibly what Richard Dolan calls the breakaway civilization. And so, what aerospace companies are part of that? Are they all allied with each other as part of some bigger thing? Are they each doing their own thing? What part does the government play in it with, Area 51, also built by Lockheed Martin, or partially, or the deep underground military bases? What is the situation, the tension between the government parts of the UFO control group and the private parts? Very interesting. However, I do lean toward a more anomalous explanation for the Tic-Tac. It doesn't make sense to me for that to have, have been Lockheed Martin or part of the UFO control group doing that, because, you could view it in an antagonistic way, disrupting the training exercises of the Nimitz, and also performing an act of war, seeming to thumb their noses at the people of the Nimitz by appearing at the cat point. So it's a very, it's either playful on the part of, ET, or it's antagonistic on the part of the control group, or, possibly Lockheed Martin or something like that. So, which is, a very blatant FU, basically, to the military or the government parts of the control group from the private parts, if that's what's going on. I don't think that's what's going on. I don't think, even though in the Jon Stewart information there is violent conflict, that seems to have been an accidental thing. This would have been a very deliberate, overt, kind of massive project to have occurred. 100 ships over a week's time, thumbing their noses, putting the FU. So it doesn't make sense for that to be Lockheed Martin. But that's just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts. Okay, let's get to what Sean Kirkpatrick had to say about the gimbal. And here's what he had to say about the gimbal.
And gimbal, we had hypothesized, was likely an artifact of how the sensor operates, as well as looking at a known object, probably a jet, and then seeing how that, a FLIR, blurs all of that kind of information. And so the only way you're going to prove that is you actually have to recreate it in the lab. And so one of the things that, again, that I had tried to get started before I retired was to do that.
Okay, anyway, listening to Sean Kirkpatrick talk about his debunkings is more boring than just about anything else. He is not an engaging speaker. I think he's trying to be deliberately boring and dry in his discussions on this stuff. He's trying to make UFOs boring, and he's uninterested, and the so he's actually very effective, I think, in that way. I think this is an affectation of his, trying to be as boring as possible, to make the subject as boring as possible. He's debunking it. He's bored by it. You should be bored by it too. But yeah, as far as the gimbal goes, there was a fleet of them, right? There was that one object was, I think, the largest of multiple objects that were moving in a deliberate formation. But according to Sean Kirkpatrick, it's a sensor artifact. Nothing to see here, guys. Go about your business. Anyway, so there you go. There's Sean Kirkpatrick and his latest round of disinformation, even though he is ostensibly retired. He is more active now than he ever was before at putting out the propaganda. So, let me know what you think about that in the comments below, and about what you think is really going on in each of those individual UFO cases, those 3 big videos that Lou Elizondo and Chris Mellon and TTSA were able to get out there and make a big splash with, that created this grassroots movement, ultimately engaging Congress to actually do something about it. Unfortunately, a lot of that has been co-opted, but they are still powering ahead, and we are going to get field hearings and more. And we got David Grush out of it. That was a big thing that came out of all of this. And we're hopefully going to get his 40-plus whistleblowers in the very near future. Don't be disheartened by Sean Kirkpatrick's propaganda. That's what it is. It's going to be interesting to see him having to explain some stuff when we get those direct participants of these UFO crash retrieval and reverse engineering programs coming forward publicly. But let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed this video, please give me a big thumbs up. I sure would appreciate it. Smash the subscribe button and the bell to be notified of future videos. You don't want to miss a thing. Join me on social media, Facebook and Twitter, links below. Love to see you guys there. If you wanted to support Cosmic Road in an even bigger way, please consider grabbing a coffee mug or a t-shirt t-shirt in the merch store below, or by becoming a channel member. Channel members are rock stars, and I really appreciate you guys' support. Thank you so much. Meanwhile, there are plenty of other videos on the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. This is Jack with Cosmic Road, signing out.